I've recently found myself building hardly anything interior, so today I really wanted to change that. And with no holds barred, I did. For this build, I really just wanted to jam in as much detail as I possibly could, and I think I accomplished that pretty well. Okay, enough of the candles. I'm making this video to show off some of the techniques that I used in this build, so that hopefully you can learn some stuff to use in your own. If you've been following me for a while, and I mean a while, you'll probably recognize this first technique, and it's the cheese slope floor. This is a really fun technique, but honestly, it's such a pain. For this technique, you're gonna need a lot of cheese slopes, obviously, and it works best in a bordered or at least a contained area. You're gonna wanna know beforehand where things are kinda gonna be, because cheese slope math ain't perfect and it starts to fall off a grid. For the Alchemist's Laboratory, I didn't do a perfect pattern with this, so I'm gonna show you a perfect pattern because it's so much easier to start with. I have this build here that I've struggled with a name for. This is a build from 2022, and other than some bad Instagram pictures and a TikTok, I haven't really shared it on the internet much. But I see this build as a benchmark of my abilities. I actually first built this in 2019, and at the time I considered it the best of my abilities. Once again, about 18 months later, I built one in 2020. Now I didn't quite think it was my best, but I still thought it was really good. Then comes Summer Joust 2022 when I built this one here, once again considering it the very best I could do. But long story short, I used this technique on the floor for each one, and 5 years later I still think this floor technique holds up. The technique is actually really simple. You're just setting your cheese slopes in there in your desired pattern, if you're going for a pattern. And you might need some plates or tiles in there every once in a while to make the math work up, otherwise it'll be super tight and might stress out your pieces, but you can figure out the math on that. For the most part in this build, I didn't do it all willy-nilly. I sort of at least tried to follow a bit of a grid, and some points I needed to put a 1x1 plate or have them kind of facing up so that the slope moves up so it fits right. But this is all stuff that I hope you guys can experiment with, because it's a really fun technique that gives off a really good look. Also, I really like how I got these carpets in there, and you can kind of see how I did that. This next technique should not take as long. I don't have a long-winded backstory with it. It's a technique from Ralph Langer, and it's for this part of the floor that's this wood planks. Originally, I was gonna have this whole half be this technique, and then I didn't do that. This technique is pretty easy. You need a bar or flex tube if you want to curve it, these clips, and then a combination of whatever color plates, tiles, and slopes you want, and voila, really good wood paneling. You can also take some brown stud shooter triggers and put them into a 1x2 gap and close it off on the top. This rockwork on the wall is also inspired by Ralph Langer. Using a wall of ball joints and various dark bluish gray pieces, you are able to build a very convincing stone wall. An alchemist needs a lot of different vials and bottles of stuff to make alchemy with. I used a lot of the actual molded flasks, but I also brick built some bottles, mainly transparent cone pieces with the round plates with the bar attachment. For the corks are just top of the bottle, and having a lot of them on a shelf just looks really good. And then there's this big bottle that I made using the helmet from Sandy Cheeks, and I was able to fit a transparent dish in there to make it look like it actually has liquid in it. And I used another one here in a contraption that I can only liken to the still from MASH. I used a lot of different stickered and printed elements to properly decorate this lab. Some for the carpets and stool, chalkboard, the moon. Possibly my favorite are these drawers. They're the pouches from the Tuscan Raider brickhead that I got in a parts draft. Some other stuff that's just strewn about, and multiple shelves with books, bottles, and anything an alchemist might need. And speaking of books, I built a couple bookshelves that actually fit the molded books, as well as having several thrown about the lab. There are also some scrolls, which are just 1x1 round bricks with a bar through them. I have some desks at the front of the build, and they're really simple builds. I was able to include some really good detail with some brown suitcases that are just slotted in, and then covering the top with bottles, candles, and other trinkets she might need. And the one up here has a spot to prop open a book. Let me know if I should make instructions on the desks and bookcases to put on Rebreakable. I just want to gauge if there's any actual interest in it. I also have this little table, and I really like the look of it, but I'm not sure I would recommend it. I had a few too many casualties. But if you want to risk it, it's plates and tiles getting held together by some skeleton legs. But be careful. I think it's time that I address the candles. They are one of the things that I knew I wanted when I started working on this build. Just candles everywhere. And I wanted no candle holders of any kind. Just candles were set down, wax is melted everywhere, new candles have been added to the pile of wax, just full on safety hazard. A lot of the candles are just this tooth piece, a 1x1 round plate with a hole, the candlestick piece, and a little flame. They are super easy. I also made candles with just cones and cylinders. There's a couple telescopes, a goblet, and I just had a lot of fun with it. And looping back to the floor, I was able to use some white cheese slopes to have it look like there was wax on the floor. I just wish I could actually light it all up.
Wink wink, if any lighting company wants to sponsor me.
I managed to sprinkle a few plants in here. There's a few flowers in jars, but that's a tale as old as time. This bookcase seems to be growing flowers, and it's partially held together with a rubber band. And I can't forget about this mushroom, which is the base of a lever on a toothpiece. Last but not least, I'm going to show off how to make this window. And I actually use the same technique on this build that I've already shown off. You will need 2 of your mighty flex tubes. I love me a good flex tube. A bunch of headlight bricks of your desired stone wall color. And you'll need various other parts in that color. And you're kind of going to want to figure out the shaping beforehand with some 2x plates. And the one I did for this one went 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2. Ignore the top one for now. Now you're going to take some of your headlight bricks and line the underside of the inner part of the arch. And then another headlight brick on the top corner, and you'll put a 1x1 tile on that. It'll help with the arch. And then you can take whatever plates and tiles and bricks to decorate the side and top, and that'll get put onto your flex tube, and you continue that with the rest of the 2x plates and reverse that for the other side. And you're kind of going to want to keep some flex tube available. I don't think available is the right word, but you'll need something to be able to connect onto. I used a Travis brick, and then you can decorate that however you like. And there you go, a beautiful arch. And then for like the window frames, I used various bars and whips to create some cool shapes. Well, that's it. Hope you guys learned something. If you use any of these techniques, let me know. Let's end with some spicy shots. This floor technique is the reason my Instagram bio says tan cheese.